The fireman sequence page allows us to see the level of accuracy as far as uniforms are concerned. Much like the pilot outfits earlier, the old version, the original drawings, had very nondescript sort of uniforms, very baggy. You can't really tell where the seams or cuts are. They just were supposed to go along with the helmet and the boots and indicate fireman, whereas over here you've got the buttons coming down in a particular V, you've got the belt buckles, you've got the helmets, even the pants seem to have a certain kind of tapering at the bottom. It's extremely detailed and it gives you a very definite idea about what that uniform looks like. Later on in the same fireman sequence, you see some of the updating that's happened along with the details. So you've got just, again, empty corners, blank backgrounds that are replaced by actual walls and windows and a little bit of flower garden over there. But the fire engine, as opposed to this thing that is being pulled with the bell on it, where the hose pipe has to be dragged off the wheel, has been, obviously it's been modernized to the fire engine to go along with the time of publication and to more accurately reflect the UK's firefighting capabilities at that time. The mechanical precision of these drawings of these automobiles, like the ones on the plane, are crucial to the new look and the feeling of realism that the Black Island got, and of course what is a mainstay of later and more complex Tintins. This continues with the camper sequence, in which you can see the vehicles have been updated, the backgrounds have been refreshed, the whole sense of urgency and braking of it and the crashing of it really takes on a lot more violence and a lot more reality because of the mechanical precision of these drawings. Immediately following that, we come to the railway station sequence, which might be one of the most powerful examples of the redrawing and the level of accuracy brought to it. Whereas before you had only a simple fence with some building in the background and what looks like a steam engine locomotive in the corner of a narrow panel, and then Tintin running up some green, again, just basic stairs. In the redrawing, you've got a wall in front of a very modern train, you've got a background, and in fact the background determines which station this is. This is apparently Bishop Stratford. This is what it looked like at the time of the redrawing, and this is apparently an absolute accurate replication of that train station, including the stairs that Tintin runs up in order to jump on top of the train later. I've also heard that this musical note over here is the accurate note of the train whistle. Over here we have more of the plain buildings where you can't really tell where you are, and the redrawing replaces them with things that are very specific to the English countryside. You can see the architecture, you can see the woodwork, you can see the barrels. They look like what you would see at that time in England, and this again helps flesh out where this is taking place, and the scenery around Tintin is a very important character in these stories. And so this is one of the best examples. You can see where he's running down an English road, he's running to an English pub into which he's being yanked. Inside the pub, you see a continuation of that level of detail, although the original interior did feature what looks like a beer ad in the back, and drink gin and lime and be happy as a sign over there. You've got a lot more detail in the modern one. You've still got that gin and lime ad, but it's been redone a little bit, but everything behind them makes it feel like the interior of an English pub, including the furniture, which is done in a particular style that is very, very unique. It's not just one of those basic chairs and basic tables that we've seen before. You can see what's on the shelves behind the bar, you can see what's hanging from the top of the bar, and again, it's just completing the environment to such a wonderful degree and making it so much more accurate as opposed to the blank walls, blank stage on which the original story was taking place. One thing that's unfortunately lost is that little Guinness ad that was there in the original but isn't in the redrawing. And you really see all of this culminating in this walk that Tintin then takes to the seaside town, where the original backgrounds were almost blank. You've got some hills over there, but you can't really tell any feature other than that it's vaguely hilly, with the addition of a brook and rocks and a tree and even the shaping of the hills behind. You've got a much more pleasing and a much more full environment. And this is particularly important in panels like this, where the figures are so small and what you're really looking at is the landscape. You can see why the publishers wanted this redrawn, because if you lived in England and if you lived in this area, this would not at all seem like what you see outside your window. And Tintin's approach into town really shows this, again, with just a few simple details being added, where you first had the approach into town showing you some rooftops in the distance and a tall building. You can see the sloping nature. You can tell that some houses are lower and lower as they get to the water, and you can see that slope in the rooftops in the new drawing. Whereas the ocean was mainly empty, with some boats right at the shoreline that you could vaguely make out in the original. You've now got a couple of boats out there in the water. You've got what looks like a lighthouse, and it just brings the whole town life in a completely new way. And that continues when you look at the tavern and him walking up to the tavern, where you've got architecture in the background, you've got a tavern sign, but it looks a lot more cartoony and a lot more spare. Whereas in the new one, you can tell a slight curve to the walls, you can feel the weight sagging in the building, you can see the cobblestones, and the sign itself is a lot more accurate. You can also see in a lot of places that the roads have been paved. All of the drawings in the earlier edition showed either paths or what looked like mud roads. It's very distinct that in the redrawing, it's been made a point that no, Britain has paved roads and highways, and even in small seaside towns does have a sidewalk and does have roads, and they're distinct from each other. So there you have it, a quick comparison of some of the pages from the original and the redrawn Black Island by Herge.